Hi class, it's Dr. T with just a brief lesson on the simultaneity and the totalistic paradigm. You're doing great with that special topics thread where you're talking about the difference between the two paradigms. You've all looked at it well and answered it right. So I just want to go over it with you so that you'll get a good idea of what it is. Remember in the lesson this week, we talked about the simultaneity paradigm as the physicists and the totalistic paradigm as the bakers. Basically, what a paradigm is a worldview. It's how we look at reality. So in nursing theory, there are these two worldviews basically, which is one worldview is totalistic, the other worldview is simultaneity. The totalistic paradigm is saying that it is a holistic view of the person, that we want to see more than just the physiological, for example, and spirit, so we can look at all the parts. The totalistic paradigm adds up the parts to make the whole.
That means it's like the cake. You add the ingredients to the cake and you get the full cake. But you add the milk, you add the eggs, you add the water, you add flour, and it makes the cake. Whereas the simultaneity paradigm worldview, theorists believe that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts and that you really can't divide things up. So the people who develop theories based on the simultaneity paradigm tend to look at the whole person and look at them without dividing up into parts. So for example, if the simultaneity paradigm is viewing, for example, Martha Rogers' theory would be a primary paradigm for the primary theory for the simultaneity paradigm. And Martha Rogers' theory looks at energy wave field patterns. So when you're assessing the individual, you're looking at the patterns. Patterns are representations of the whole. You're looking at patterns of wholeness and harmony, say, for example, versus patterns of fragmentation and disharmony. Theorists like Martha Rogers would not look at parts, whereas theorists like Roy in her adaptation model would look at different parts and add them up to the whole. So in her paradigm, she would look at the physiological mode, the psychosocial mode, and so on. So there are certain theorists who view the parts making up the whole, and there are other theorists viewing the whole person as greater than the sum of the parts. They really are quite distinctly different worldviews, although you could claim that they're both holistic worldviews. So here's some examples. This, I hope you can see it. You see this? Let me get it there. Okay, this is representation of the totalistic paradigm. If you can see this, you can see I can take it apart and put it together. So think about this as like the physical aspects of the patient, the psychological, the mental, social, spiritual, and this whole thing, and you see it's different colors, represents the whole. That is Roy's adaptation model, Newman with a U systems model, Orum's self-deficit care model, the models that break up the human being into parts and then put them back together and say that's the human person. There it is. It's still holistic. It's just seeing it a little bit differently. Now you would have the simultaneity paradigm. This is Martha Rogers is the simultaneity paradigm. Also, Watson's theory of caring is the simultaneity paradigm. Parsi's human becoming theory is a simultaneity paradigm. So look, here's the simultaneity paradigm. This represents the simultaneity paradigm. It's all together. I'm going to open it up, and you can see the simultaneity paradigm is actually like this. It's ever changing, but it's all one part, and you could see patterns in it. That's the simultaneity paradigm. Look at this over here like this, okay? That's the simultaneity paradigm. This is Martha Rogers' paradigm, patterns and energy field patterns that are ever changing. So guess what? With Martha Rogers' theory, you would be looking at interventions that transcend the physical, perhaps. The simultaneity paradigm is the paradigm where the non-physical interventions, music therapy, laying on of hands, energy field patterns, Reiki, healing touch, therapeutic touch, color, distant healing, prayer, distant prayer as healing, interventions that go beyond the physical form. Simultaneity paradigm, that's what it looks like. Totalistic paradigm, all different parts make up the whole. Neither is better than the other. They're just two different views. What you can do is actually use both. It's how you're looking at the person. When you walk into that patient's room or you're taking care of a person, how are you seeing that human person? If you're Martha Rogers, you're seeing energy field patterns. If you're Sister Callister Roy, you're seeing the physiological mode, the psychosocial mode, etc. If you're Newman system, you're seeing different aspects of the human person, the physical, the mental, the psychosocial, community, etc. If you're Parsi, you're seeing the simultaneity, you're seeing the whole person. You're claiming that you can't break it apart. You have to look at the whole all at once. Another example of the simultaneity and totalistic paradigm would be, think of a kaleidoscope, and here's a kaleidoscope. I know we're not together, but you all have watched a kaleidoscope. When you look into a kaleidoscope and you turn and you see all these little pieces, but it sort of makes up a whole, but you can see those colors. You're seeing red and blue and white, etc. That's the totalistic paradigm. Now I'm going to turn it, and if you were looking through it, you'd probably see this better, but I'm going to turn it, and you're going to see, and with a kaleidoscope turning, you get a pattern that's kind of, you can't really see it separate. It's a pattern. That's the simultaneity paradigm. So two paradigms, two worldviews, seeing the individual a little bit differently. Both are holistic. One is a particular brand of holism that's unitary and there's no boundaries. The other is a brand of holism that says we can put together the parts to make up the human being. In both cases, nursing is saying the human being is more than the physical mode or the physical aspects. We're more than machines. The medical model historically has looked at individuals as broken machines that we're going to fix. The holistic models in nursing tend to be more broad, more holistic, more viewing the person as more than just a disease. And looking at the person from different perspectives. When you look at each of your theories of nursing, you're going to see that every single theorist looks at that meta-paradigm of nursing, the human person, nursing, environment, and health, and defines it according to their particular perspective or view of nursing. So if I'm looking out of the lens of the simultaneity paradigm and a particular perspective like, say, Parsi's theory of human becoming, I'm going to define nursing
health, environment, and person according to that perspective. And that's how I'm going to see the patient. That's how I'm going to solve problems. That's how I'm going to understand interventions that I'm doing. If you're Martha Rogers, you're seeing energy field patterns, and you're looking to see how you can co-participate with that person to change those energy field patterns to patterns of wholeness and harmony. If you're Sister Callister Roy, you're looking through the lens of adaptation and stress. You're looking at different modes of the person, and you're saying, okay, according to this mode, how am I going to manipulate the stimuli coming in to help that person be better adapted? So it's not as hard as you might think at first when you're looking at it. You just decide, is that theorist a baker or is that theorist a physicist? Are they looking at the person as made up of parts and pulling it together, or are they looking at the person as whole being without breaking down the parts? Both are good, both are acceptable, and you have to decide for your own self how you would actually look at the patient. But you can look at them from any perspective that feels right to you and that fits the situation that you like. I hope this has been a help to you. Think of these models when you're trying to understand the difference between the two paradigms. Remember, this is the simultaneity model, okay? Constant, moving, changing patterns. We have the patterns. That's the simultaneity model. Martha Rogers is the simultaneity model. Watson is the simultaneity model. Parsi's simultaneity model. Parsi, Watson, and Newman, Health is Expanding Consciousness. Guess where they developed their models? They all learned with Martha Rogers, and then they developed their models based on a Martha Rogers model. Martha Rogers is she's in heaven now, was a visionary whom we haven't caught up to yet. If you think about all the non-invasive therapies that have become more prevalent over the past years, even in surgery, we're doing surgeries that are less invasive. We're doing more and more interventions that do less harm to the individual. Well, that's what Martha Rogers predicted. Now, the totalistic paradigm, Sister Callister Roy, Newman systems model, Orem self-deficit theory, breaking up the individual into parts to make this whole that is, you can see the different parts on it. Either way, they're holistic. That's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know if you have any questions. If you don't get it and you want to just talk about it, Skype me and we can talk. Take care, and let me tell you, class, you're doing a great job. We're in week 2, and I really think you're doing well. You're learning wonderful things. You can't imagine all that you've learned already. Just go back and look at your answers to discussion questions. Look at the great teamwork you've done. You're doing awesome. Take care, and let me know if you need me.